Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, my name is LJ and you're watching NoClutch Garage. In this video, I'm actually doing something that I wasn't planning on doing. I don't know if you guys recall, but a few days ago, I actually posted a picture on my Instagram of my steering wheel cover, and it's a steering wheel cover that you have to stitch on. And when I did that, I actually got really positive feedback, and a bunch of people were asking me where I got it. And the thing is, I got it from Arkk Performance. Arkk Performance sent it to me because I had been asking about it for a while. The problem is that they are not selling it anymore. I've had so many people in my inbox asking me about it, and so everybody was asking me if I had a video where I could show them how I stitched it and stuff. So video I wasn't planning on making, and now I'm gonna make it. So I'm gonna take my steering wheel off because it's actually, you can do it with the steering wheel on, but it's kind of difficult. So I'm gonna take the steering wheel off and I'm gonna show you how to do that. And I'm gonna take it inside, and my steering wheel is already stitched, so I'm gonna go ahead and unstitch part of it. I'm not gonna unstitch all of it, and I'm gonna show you how I stitched it so that you guys can also do it. And it's actually fairly simple. It doesn't take a whole lot of skill. You just have to be patient with it, and that's really it. So let's go ahead and get this done. So I guess the first question would be, why would you want to do this over a traditional swap, a traditional steering wheel swap? Well, first of all, this is significantly cheaper than buying a steering wheel. Steering wheel, just the cover or just the wheel itself without all the extra accessories, depending on what you want on it, it's going to run you anywhere upwards of $400, where something like this is going to be a fraction of the cost. And the only thing about it, of course, is that you're going to have to stitch it yourself, and you're going to have to tuck in all of these little parts right here. This one I didn't tuck, but all of this, you're going to have to tuck it. You're going to have to take the steering wheel apart, which you would have already had to do on a steering wheel swap. And it's just more time consuming, but it's actually, I'm the kind of person that would rather work for something like this and save some money in the process. After all, this channel started as a DIY channel, so why not go ahead and show you guys how to do this. And we're going to go ahead, take this wheel inside, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, we got to take off this airbag right here. To take off the airbag is actually kind of simple. I don't know if you can see right here, but there's this hole. You're going to want to take some sort of screwdriver, push in, and when you push in, there are these kind of releases. It's going to release the airbag from the wheel, and there's one on the other side as well. And if you want a closer look at how this is done, you can go ahead and check out my video on the paddles, and I will put that right up there so you guys can watch that and kind of get a better idea of how to do this. Of course, when you do this, you're going to want to go ahead and unplug the battery because you don't want the airbag to accidentally engage. And then you unplug it, and you can put this to the side. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take apart the steering wheel. And to take it apart, we're going to be undoing this big bolt in the middle, and that's going to be a 16mm bolt. So I already broke it loose, but basically you're just going to unscrew it like a regular bolt. Okay, make sure you don't lose this. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to unplug all of these cables right here. So we got one, and we got two, and then we can just pull off the wheel. And there you go, the wheel is off. And if you're worried about which direction this wheel is going to go when you try to put it back in, don't be too worried about it. The little guide is actually keyed, so if you see that flatter side at the bottom right there, it's keyed, so it's gonna fit only a certain way, so you don't have to worry about your steering wheel being crooked or anything like that. All right guys, so we have the wheel, and we're gonna go ahead and take it inside, and we're gonna go ahead and work on it. The one other thing that you're gonna need besides that 16mm socket is you're gonna need some Torx screwdrivers, or if you have these little sockets, you're gonna need a T20, and this is gonna be so we can unscrew everything else, because we're gonna have to take some of this plastic, we're gonna have to take it off, some of these parts, and we're gonna have to be able to tuck these little edges in. So make sure that you keep that with you so that we can work on it and get this done the right way. All right guys, so right here I have the steering wheel. And so the first thing I want to do, since I have pretty much done this already before, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take off all the plastic pieces. So the first thing we're gonna take off is gonna be this piece right here. And the way you take that off, there are 2 screws. There's gonna be 1 screw right here, and then there's gonna be 1 on the other side. And so we're just gonna take those off real quick. Once you're done with that, there's another screw on the back of the wheel right there, and so you just want to take that one off. Once you have done that, you can pretty much pull this back, and it comes off like that. And we can set that to the side, and now it exposes the full wheel. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the paddles. And the paddles, I had already disconnected this side, but it's these blue connectors right here if you have paddle shifters. If you don't have paddle shifters, then you don't have to worry about this part, but they're going to be these blue connectors. And some of these are kind of tricky to get to, so you might need to use a flathead or something of the sort to kind of get them unhooked. Particularly this one right down here that's kind of tucked in the back. But if your wheel is apart like this, you can actually pull this plastic module off like that. Yep. And then once you do that, you can unplug some of these little wires. Just keep track of where they go. And you can move these to the side, and you can even unplug it from here if you wanted to. All of these right here. So once you're able to get that off to the side, and you don't have to, if you're not good at keeping all of this together and knowing where everything is going to go, you don't have to do all of that, but it does help trying to reach this little connector back here. But anyway, if you did do that, once you can reach this, you just pull it and it pulls right off. It's super simple. I'm trying to get the angles as best I can, but it's kind of difficult. So now that you have those unplugged, you can safely remove the paddles completely from the wheel. And the way you're going to remove the paddles, there are these screws right here. Kind of like the screws that were right here, but they're gonna be right beside the little buttons right here. And there's 1 on each side, and you're just gonna take them off. You're gonna use the same T20 drive for all of this. All right, so now that's off, and the paddles will just come right out. And you can guide them completely off like that. And just put these, somewhere safe. You want to make sure they don't get damaged. Now we have the wheel itself, but we're not done. We got to do one more thing, and that is that we have to remove these little plastic pieces right here. So the way to do that is there are these screws, and they're right here. So you're going to take 1 off from each side, and they're going to be the same T20s. All right, now that that's off, you can safely remove these modules, and you don't have to unplug them completely. You can just kind of leave them dangling, but you're gonna want to move them out of the way. And also at that point, if you want, you can also take off the back plastic piece, but that's completely up to you. So now we have here the skeleton, pretty much, of the wheel with some bits kind of floating around. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna unsew the top part to pretty much show you how this is gonna go. Alright guys, I have pretty much undone this top part to show you guys how I did everything. As you can see, it's just kind of like a piece of, well, this is suede, so a piece of suede material, and it just kind of wraps around. But it looks very nice when it's done correctly, so we're gonna go ahead and attempt that once again. And I'm actually okay with redoing this because I had missed a stitch and it was really bothering me. So yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right. And if you can follow along with this up here, this bottom part will be no issue at all. So let's get to it. All right guys, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to get yourself a needle. And this needle, I think it's a size 16 needle, but pretty much is gonna be ideal for this job. And there's a kit included with this that includes some thread, some double-sided sticky tape, and a little plastic tool, which I do not have right now, but I'll get it in a second. And so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this thread. We definitely are gonna want to get as much thread as we can for this longer piece. Yesterday I didn't get enough and I ran out about halfway through, so I stitched it and then in the middle and then restitched the rest, and that's not really the proper way to do it, so we're gonna do it right this time. Get yourself a pretty long piece. I would say for you Euro guys, I don't know, maybe a meter. I think a meter would be straight, maybe a little bit longer, but about this long, just to be safe. Go ahead and cut it off. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this thread, we're gonna grab our needle and go ahead and get it through. And then we're gonna grab both ends of the thread, like so. So there we have our knot. It's nice and tight, it's not gonna fall apart. And now you have your very long thread. So now the next part is going to be on the wheel, and on the wheel this part is kind of tricky. It's not overly difficult, but you have two sides on this stitching. All right guys, so the way I stitch this, it's kind of like a cross stitch pattern. I'm not sure what the actual name is, but BMW uses this stitching on their cars, on their steering wheel. So I decided to just stick with it and do it the same. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's actually very easy, and once you get the pattern down, and of course it's actually time saving, so this will help you out if you're trying to do this quickly and not take so long on this project. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this needle, and you see where it kind of ends right there. So I'm going to stick it in through the bottom like that and have it go through. And this is just the way I'm going to start this, because this is going to be tucked in anyway, so it's not going to show, but it's also a very good way to start, so you have a good anchor point. The issue with doing it just like this is that the little knot that you created at the end of the thread can easily go through the hole if it's not secured. So what I'm actually going to do for extra security is I'm going to grab my needle and put it through the two threads and kind of make like a lasso kind of thing going on right here, just to kind of secure it. So now it's on there nice and tight, and we can go ahead and start threading. Alright, so this stitch is actually really easy once you follow it. So what you want to do is, if you see where I started, you basically want to count the threads, right? So and what I mean by threads, I mean this little line. So it's 1 2 3 4 5, and you kind of want to line them up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this first stitch. And since this is technically on the first stitch right here, you want to put it on the second stitch on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that needle, and what I'm going to do is the front, if I remember correctly, the front's going to be over and the back is going to be under. But first let me show you under. So what I mean by under is I'm going to take the needle and go under the thread. That way we have what's going to be our first kind of stitch, right? All right guys, so hopefully you guys will be able to see this a little bit better. Try to get a little bit better lighting, but I went ahead and stitched up a little bit on the steering wheel because I wanted to show y'all kind of what I was talking about. It's kind of like a step if you really think about it. You know, from the moment you start, you're going to go across to that stitch, and then you're going to stitch over. So you're going to skip the stitch that's on the right side or the other side opposite to where you just stitched, directly opposite to it, and stitch on the one above. And then the same thing over here. And so you're kind of like stepping, right? Stepping up. And so you're going to want to keep doing that throughout the whole thing. And what I meant by over and under is basically once you get the groove and once you get your pattern going, you kind of want to keep that pattern throughout so it looks nice and neat. And so right here, for example, the front of the wheel is going to be over, which means that I'm going to stitch right here. I'm going to skip this stitch, and then over means that the thread, whenever I bring it all the way through, it's going to be threaded over. I don't know if you can see that or how well you can see that, but it's over that stitch. And then when I come across, after I skip my stitch right here, I go under. And so this blue is going to be threaded under, and then I just pull up. And I just pull up, and it created that pattern all over again. And I'm just going to repeat that pattern over and over and over until I get all around the wheel. Right here, I'm heading into the last stitch on the red side. I only really have one choice on this side, and that is to put it through that stitch and just close it up like that. But now the issue then becomes like, okay, so I have it like this. How do I actually close it? So what I did is I actually went into the red side of the stitch, and I don't know how good you can see, but right there, if you go into the right side of the stitch, I just kind of poked it through the hole, and that's gonna bring it out like that. You're gonna close it tight like that, and then you're gonna make a little tiny knot and try to get it as close to that as possible, and that knot is not going anywhere. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my little utility knife that I had with me. You should use scissors, but I have a utility knife, and we're just gonna go ahead and make another knot just for safe measure. And once you feel the knot lock, then you can cut it off, and just like that, you have made your stitch. I'm gonna show you right there. Look at that, guys. That pattern is just oof. Looks so good on this. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's also the M colors, so it's gonna look really good, especially if you have an M Sport car. All right, guys, so the only thing left we have to do now is put everything back together. I'm going to show you how to tuck these little corners in so it looks nice and tidy, and you're pretty much done at that point once you sew everything. I didn't use the double-sided sticky tape that comes along with it, but really, like, this is not going anywhere. This is not moving at all. So especially if you get a really good tight stitch on it, then you'll be all right. And one thing I did want to mention though is, I don't know how well you can see this little cross stitching right here, but the middle part, you kind of want to get it close to the seam between the two sides here, just to keep it even and just to make it look a little bit nicer. But overall, I mean, your wheel is going to look really nice with this stitch pattern. And you can choose to do just a regular pattern side to side, but that just takes way too long and it takes a lot more thread. So I decided to do it like this, and I like it. And if you know more about sewing than I do, you know, then you can, I guess, do whatever you want. But this is just the way I decided to do it. And so now we're gonna go ahead and put the wheel back together and put it back on the car. All right, guys, now that we have the wheel completely sewn on, we're just gonna put everything back together. And we're gonna start with this back piece, and you can just kind of rest the whole wheel on that. And as you see, like, we have leftover material. This is just gonna get tucked in, and it's actually pretty simple. You kind of just lay this on top and just make sure that these little edges are tucked, and same thing for this side. At the bottom, there is usually like this thing is usually completely like put together, but I actually modified it a little bit and cut it right here so that it's able to be tucked in like the rest of the wheel. Otherwise you would have it over this plastic piece, and I really didn't like that look. So I just kind of cut it so I can tuck it like the rest of the wheel. And so once the wheel is like this, you can pretty much turn it over and start putting all the wires back where they belong. Just make sure everything is tucked in, and you pretty much have the new wheel. And these blue wires have kind of like a guide right here, this little black piece, and that guide attaches to the side of this plastic piece. So, you know, that way it kind of tells you how the cable should go. Same thing for this one. There are guides right here that will guide it in. Alright, so the front's going to be a little bit more difficult because we have to tuck this bottom part in. And I modified it a little bit. I took this is usually just one piece, and I kind of cut it right here just so I'd be able to tuck in these parts a little bit easier, you know, because otherwise it would get pinched. And you don't have to do this. Actually, you could just have it over this plastic piece and it just look like one single piece, but I wanted to tuck it in, and I tried tucking it in with the whole part on there, and I was having some major issues, so I decided to go ahead and cut it. Now, because it is going to be a little bit trickier, it's going to be important for you to use this tool, and we're going to go ahead and try to fit it in. Use the skinny side just to flatten stuff out, flatten that material in there. And then on this side, you're going to kind of do the same. And this is only if you decide you want to tuck it in. If not, I mean, it's fine. It looks fine either way. I just wanted it to look a little bit nicer. And then once it's tucked, make sure it's really nicely tucked in there. It's going to be snug. You're definitely going to have to apply some pressure to this bottom piece right here. You're going to grab your screwdriver and your screw, your screw in, and then just go ahead and start tightening. Make sure you don't over tighten. If there are parts that are kind of sticking out too much, kind of like this right here, you can use the tool to guide some of that in there and flatten it out a little bit. Make it look a little neater. As you can see, this is closed seamlessly, or you know, as seamlessly as it can get. And then inspect all your cables, make sure they're out of the way from this plastic piece. And you're just gonna push it in place. So you can see the edges are nice and tucked in where they need to go. And I really like the look of the wheel now. It looks really good. So put the plastic in where it's supposed to go, and you can go ahead and start screwing in the inside. And now we have our final product, and last thing we got to do is mount it on the car, and we're good to go. So you can see, people were wondering if it's going to be loose. I mean, this is as tight as it gets. And if you can see everywhere, it's all nice and tucked in. Everywhere. And yeah, look at the seams. No seams, and the stitching is just beautiful. It looks good. Looks really good. Kind of patting myself on the back there, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much nicer than this, unless you're a professional. All right, guys, so we are back in the car, and we're about to put the steering wheel back on. And there's nothing really anything special about it, except you just have to get the plugs in the right spot, and you have to torque it in the right spec, and we'll talk a little bit about that. All right, so what we are gonna do is we're gonna take our steering wheel. And remember, I mentioned this earlier, the wheel is keyed, so it only goes in one way, and pretty much once it goes in, it's gonna stay in. It's not gonna be a bigger issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the bolt that I took out and go ahead and put it in place. I'm not gonna torque it yet. All right, now it's in place. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go ahead and plug in my plugs. All right, and so again, to torque this, you're gonna use a 16mm socket. And for the next part, I'm not gonna just torque it in. I'm actually gonna use a torque wrench. And so, you know, just get a torque wrench that's smaller. You don't need a huge one, but we're gonna be torquing it in at the correct spec. All right, and the right torque spec for this, once you have everything on there, is 46 pound-feet of torque, or about 62 Newton meters. So we're gonna go ahead and set it on the right spec. So on 45 and 46, and now we just tighten. There we go. Once you hear that click, that's how you know it's in the right position. And now the next thing and the last thing we have to do is we're gonna grab our airbag, which is this one right here. Make sure all the cables are out of the way. Go ahead and plug it in. Click it in, and there you go. And just like that, you have a beautiful new wheel. And I mean, it really does look really good. I really like the quality. It feels good. And I'm gonna go ahead and test and see if it works with the steering wheel warming feature. And while we wait for the steering wheel to heat up, I do want to mention that you will get this driver restraint system warning when you take off the airbag, and all you have to do for that is just clear your codes, get you like a code scanner and clear the codes. Or if you have something like boot mod or MHC where you can see all your codes. You can just clear them through that if you're tuned, and it should take away the code right away. And just as I was saying all of that, yeah, I can definitely feel the heat coming through. So for those of you that were worried that your steering wheel heat system wasn't going to work, it's working pretty good right now, actually. I do think that it's going to take a little bit longer as compared to, you know, just the leather, but it is working. So if you live in cold climates, yeah, don't worry about this affecting you at all. It's still going to warm up your wheel. Now, if you did a wheel swap, you would probably lose that functionality if the wheel didn't have the warming feature. So those people that swap to the carbon fiber wheels or the, you know, any sport wheel will probably lose that functionality. But because you're still using the same wheel on this, you will definitely be keeping that. I mean, it's working perfectly fine. All right, guys, that has been it for this installation. I know it was, it might have been a little bit of a rushed video, but I really wasn't planning on making this video at all. And I had already installed my wheel cover, and I really didn't feel like taking it all completely apart. But I think I pretty much gathered all the information necessary to put these on. It's really not that difficult. It is kind of time consuming, I'm not gonna lie. But if you are one of those people that doesn't mind putting their time and effort into your car, then this shouldn't be a big deal for you. This is an absolute, I think it's absolutely worth it to do this, because it does elevate the look of your wheel. And of course, there are different designs. It's not just suede, it's not just Alcantara, or, you know, you can do a different type of leather pattern or perforated leather, something that's going to make your wheel look a little bit nicer. So whatever your like is, there's a cover for that. I will be providing a link down in the description for these covers if Arkk Performance decides to start selling them again, because these were not on sale. Or if you have one of these laying around, as I've been DM'd plenty already and they just didn't have the motivation to put them on, you can use this as a guide to help you put them on, and maybe a little bit of motivation, because I think it's worth it. And I was dreading it too when I found out I had to do it myself. But now that I see the results, man, I do not regret it at all. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. If you like this video, go ahead and click like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I have way more videos coming. And just like I said in the very beginning of the creation of this channel, this is a DIY channel primarily. And this is a perfect example of a DIY that anybody can do. It just takes a little bit of time. If you haven't seen my new website, go to www.NoClutchGarage.com, and I will be posting all of these mods on there. You can go purchase them. There will be links for everything. There will be videos for installations, and I will be releasing a lot more stuff through there. Anything that pertains to this channel and my activities will go on there at some point and eventually, because it's only one of me and I'm trying to do all my social media and my website stuff, and trying to keep up with you guys. But anyway, guys, thank you for everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.